Can I say hi? Namaskar, which is namaste. I say it in Bengali because I'm a Bengali. I teach a class of at Kwantlen, and I'm constantly being corrected because my students say I speak Punjabi too softly. Because when I say it, I take their names. I can't do the R's. I say Amrinder. And of course, they're very Canadianized here. So my students will say Amrinder. And they think that I have an accent. So it's very interesting. In any case, I'd like to start by saying my name is Almas Zakiuddin. And I thank the organizers, particularly Parvinder and Rambir, for inviting me, for doing me this great honor of letting me speak. I'm in very great company, so I apologize if my paper is a little short and doesn't have the kind of depth that somebody I really respect and admire has already done, the keynote speaker. So my subject today is really about sexual violence against South Asian women. I called it Muslim women because, when you say South Asian women, sometimes you assume that you're talking about all women across South Asia, and that kind of makes it a little problematic for me. So, but I'm going to talk about basically a particular case. Before I do that, I want to say that, I deliberately don't have any images, because that's one of the things that I find very difficult in incidents of sexual violence against women, that there is this gaze, and the woman is repeatedly objectified, is seen, is assumed to be this or that. And I find that problematic. And, the name that I'm going to take is very well known. So if you're interested in the image of the woman's face and her, her work, you can Google it and you will get it. There's no problem at all. Her name is Mukhtaran Mai, Mukhtar Mai or Mukhtaran Bibi or Mukhtar Mai. And before I talk to you about the incident, I want to say that I approached the issue of sexual violence against women by understanding that it's not rooted in any particular culture or tradition. I say this because, there is often the assumption that whenever it's a brown or a black or a woman of color who is being, against whom there is sexual violence, particularly, say, in the South Asian community here, but also elsewhere, the assumption is that the entire cultural tradition is to blame. It is often assumed that every male member of the cultural community to which the woman belongs is a sexual predator waiting to unleash violence against the women. And that, without any consideration of morality or law. In fact, it's also suggested often that rape and violence against women are actually sanctioned by these communities. It's also suggested that, it's okay to rape women in certain communities. So I'm approaching this subject by moving away from that kind of perspective. I don't also want to blame anything or anyone. I don't have a causal relationship with what is happening. What I'm interested in is that the same sort of approach that I just mentioned is not applied when we talk about violence in general against women in any community. For example, in most dominant or mainstream white communities, violence against women is seen as just that, violence, and it's seen as domestic violence or incidents of violence. It is not attributed to a particular culture or a particular tradition. So that's one of the reasons that I find that we must look on violence against women, particularly sexual violence, by keeping such a perspective in mind. So the case that I'm looking at happened in June 2002 in Pakistan, in a village in Pakistan called Mirwali. A woman called Mukhtar Mai was allegedly gang raped. And what was really chilling about this incident, reportedly, is that the press reported that this gang rape was sanctioned by the Panchayat, or the village council. Now, I wonder how many people have heard of this case. Okay, so we have a fair number of people who've heard of Mukhtar Mai's. And the press reports initially were that she's been gang raped, and these are the facts. I say facts in inverted commas, because the facts can be presented in any way. So first of all, I'm going to tell you what happened, and then I'll go into the different interests and agendas that seem to use this incident and become involved in this incident, and how they take it up and what happens as a result. So that's really my paper. Now, what happened was that a local reporter in Muzaffargarh district in Punjab apparently heard from people that a gang rape had happened. How did these people hear about it? They heard about it because the Imam of the mosque, Abdul Razak, he apparently denounced it. He said in a Friday khutbah, or the talk that's given on a Friday in most mosques, he said that this is wrong and it's terrible what's happened. This woman was gang raped and it was done by a panchayat. And so the reporter reported it, and within a few literally hours of that report coming out, the whole thing started snowballing. People started talking about it, activists got involved. Very soon there was a kind of outcry, particularly because the police were not doing anything. There was no kind of no one was being arrested. Now, you know that in South Asia, our law is evidence-based, right? I mean, somebody has to bring a case against someone. This is the old, thank you very much to the British Empire, the old British Penal Code, whereby somebody has to actually bring a plea before the state does anything. Now it's being changed, and there's a lot of case law that is changing it. But originally, that's the foundation of our civil and criminal legal system. So since nobody had brought what is called an FIR, first information report, which is the basic element that must happen in a police station, the case wasn't registered. Anyway, to cut a long story short, there was a lot of pressure, people started getting agitated, women's groups, and of course, a lot of community activists, including men and women, were shocked, including the Imam, who actually raised the whole issue. And very soon there was pressure on the local government, on the local police. What happened thereafter was that, very interestingly, the story that evolved was that there was a powerful gang called the a powerful family called the Mastoi family, and Mukhtar's family was apparently being pressurized by them, because Mukhtar's younger brother, who was a 12-year-old boy called Shakur, had apparently been discovered having an affair with an unmarried girl of the Mastoi family called Salma. Now, how far that is true, I haven't gone into it in detail, and I don't think that's really relevant. The relevance is that Shakur was supposed to be involved in some way. The woman Mukhtar was taken up. Now, whether she was actually presented to the panchayat, whether she was actually kidnapped by them, forcibly taken away, all those are very hazy facts and highly debatable. In the event, she disappeared, and for a period of 2 days, she was not found, 24 hours rather. At the end of the 24 hours, she was discovered, and it is then that this reporter started talking about, that she was paraded naked through the streets, that she had been gang raped by 4 men whom she had identifies by name, and therefore immediately afterwards, when the response started coming, the police went, arrested them. Okay. Who was arrested? Initially, you will not believe it, 14 people were arrested, of whom 6 were accused of actually taking part in the gang rape. And on the 31st of August, 2002, this happened in June, around, I think, the 22nd of June, the first FIR was lodged. By August, there was an anti-terrorism case against them. And of the 6 of them were convicted of murder, or of rape and, sorry, not of murder, they were convicted of rape, and the others were put in prison, and there was this death sentence hanging over them. But this was in Dera Ghazi Khan at a very low, the first sort of court that usually deals with it. In order to, I think, expedite matters, the government said, okay, take them to an anti-terrorism court, because through the legal channels, it'll take too long. When this happened, the Lahore High Court stepped in and said, nope, you can't do this, because, the guys appealed, and the Lahore High Court then said, we are going to hear the appeal. The appeal took from 2002 to 2005. Once it went into the court system, Mukhtar and Mai's case got lost there. In 2005, the Lahore High Court came down with a verdict in which it said that of the 6 accused, only 1 could be proven to have raped her. He was thrown into jail on life imprisonment, and all the others were released. At this, of course, there was a complete, everyone went ballistic in Pakistan and elsewhere. But I'll just tell you the facts, and then I'll get to what actually happened outside. After this, it's very interesting that when these people were released, guess who steps in and arrests them and restarts the case? It's the Sharia court. The federal Sharia court then rearrests these men, 6 of them, and upholds the initial verdict against them. Isn't that interesting? That the religious focus that is supposed to be anti-women, in this case actually protects Mukhtar and Mai and comes out and says, these men have to be arrested. In any case, soon after, the Supreme Court of Pakistan moves into this field and says that the Sharia court does not have the right to try it, and the Supreme Court itself will hear the appeal. And so from 2005 to 2011, until April this year, this case is before the Supreme Court of Pakistan. And finally, in April this year, the Supreme Court has given its verdict. It has upheld the Lahore High Court. Only 1 person has been convicted of rape. 5 have been freed, and I think 2 people have been fined for infraction or something very minor. So now the case becomes very interesting because you see repeated attempts to arrest the perpetrator, the so-called rapists, and the village council that was involved in everything is somehow doesn't progress through this court system. At the same time as this is happening, another very, very important and in my view, paramount dynamics start to evolve around this case. It's almost as though the case has a momentum of its own, but it's not really self-propelled. There are other interests. There are very distinct interests that now start to get involved in this case. Initially, when Mukhtar and Mai's case came out, we know that she doesn't know how to read or write. She's illiterate. Her father is also not a literate man. And so it's not surprising that some of the early documents that were filed before the police have got her thumb imprint on it. And later she says she doesn't even know what she put her imprint on. And there are many versions of how that first FIR came about and so on and so forth. But what is very unusual, or so it seems, and this is where we all come in, I guess, because we live outside Pakistan or outside South Asia, and it's our kind of lobbying and our interests that often lead to the pressure that grows, is that, first of all, Mai is very unusual in that she doesn't accept her fate. Even after supposedly being publicly humiliated and dragged through the streets or walked through the streets naked, she does not bow down to the forces pitted against her. It becomes apparent that Mai will not go away quietly. She won't kill herself and she won't keep quiet. In fact, apparently, according to one report, she wants to kill herself, but her mother prevents her from doing it. And then what she does is she says, I want justice. I want the rapist punished. Now this is seen, her statements are powerful and they appear to be extraordinary. I stress the word appear, because to me, they're not extraordinary. I think women in Pakistan, as in many parts of the world, fight for their rights. I don't see them as passive victims. I see them as very strong and powerful individuals.
Saiban, aaj Vaisakhi ka din hai. Position, load, fire.